Paul Shrimpton is PC Andrew Harper's uncle and joins me live via video link.
I was there with Debbie when, at what was for me the worst moment, when we had to go and tell my parents that their grandson had been killed, and that's something nobody should ever have to do. And so I think there's a level of there's a depth of feeling that I actually can't describe unless somebody's been through a similar thing, and then they don't need it described to them. It just tears your heart out, and there's nothing you can do to put it back in.
Many of us were expecting and were absolutely thinking that this was a clear-cut case of murder. And again, you must have had moments since where you've just felt utterly bereft that that wasn't what was seen in court.
Well, yes, but one of the things that we have to remember is that Andrew stood for law and order and the law of this country. And if the process went through and everybody followed the right procedures and everything was fair, and that was what come up with, we're in a position where we have to believe in our hearts that the law was followed. We wouldn't want the law to be completely abandoned in this case just to make us feel a little bit better, because if that was what we had, then that betrays a lot of what Andrew stood for and what he worked for all that time.
Wow, I can see that, and I think a lot of people will be quite blown away by that. And obviously the options for you and the family now, well, they're quite limited, because unless there is new evidence, new compelling evidence that wasn't available at the time of the trial, there would be no means for an appeal to be lodged. Although the sentencing has gone to the Attorney General, we don't know the outcome on that, because in the context of manslaughter, although a lot of people think in the context of this crime the sentences handed out aren't particularly long, in the context of manslaughter they're actually quite long sentences. So now you and the family are actually trying to put your emotions and the sadness that you're feeling to some good, realizing you can't do much about this particular case. You're trying to change cases in the future. Can you tell me a bit more about what it is the family want in this law change?
Absolutely, yeah. We know full well that there's absolutely nothing that will bring Andrew back to us. And so we have to look forward, and we've got to start trying to excise our quite natural emotions to bring about something that is a positive legacy, a living legacy, if you will, for Andrew, that we can look at and remember him and not think about his killers or the amount of time they served, because that just eats us up. So we're really looking to try and bring some additional protection in law for all of what we call our blue light officers. So it's all of the emergency services, irrespective of which branch they're in. They go out there every single day, and they literally put their lives on the line to keep us safe. And we just feel if somebody is prepared to do that, then we should do all that we can to do our little bit to protect them. And part of that is giving them a little bit better safeguarded law that will hopefully make people stop and think that the crime that they were looking to commit isn't worth the penalty that they know will come if an officer or a paramedic or a fire officer is seriously hurt or killed during that crime.
Well, it's amazing that assaults have been up over the last few years against emergency service workers. We've seen as well with a lot of the unrest around various protests that have been happening that, whether you agree with the protests or not and the morality behind them, there does seem to be among some members of the public something of an emboldening when it comes to being violent or disrespectful towards members of our blue light services. So I think a lot of people will think something like that is overdue. So on a practical basis, what you're calling for is, if someone is in the process of committing a crime and the police turn up and they say to that person, you know, stop, you're under arrest, don't commit that crime, they turn up to do their job. If that person does not obey and their actions then cause any harm to that police officer, it is automatically seen as a more serious crime than under normal circumstances.
Absolutely, and I think that's exactly what we need. We need to make people stop and think. Above everything else, that's the thing we need to do. And whilst you and I and most of the people clearly listening to this will just can't put their heads in the space of somebody that will commit a crime, and then knowing the dangers to other people continue with that, there are people out there that clearly go down that route. So we've got to put something in place, I think, to help them understand the serious consequences of what they then choose to do. And it's clear that the deterrents that are there at the moment in law are not enough to prevent people from attacking our emergency services and continuing with crimes when they know that there's a risk of causing injury or death. So what we're looking for is a change for that.
If people want to find out more information, or if there's a petition that's going to be set up or anything along those lines, where is the place on Facebook and Twitter to search for that? What is it that... If they go to
the Facebook page, which is Andrew's Law UK, and Twitter is at Andrew's Law UK as well. Anything like that, that'll get straight through to us, and you can kind of see what we're doing and get some updates and things. And there's no petition at the moment to go alongside this, because we're in the process of starting to talk to people. We've got things being lined up with various politicians and groups and stuff like that we're talking to. So we don't necessarily feel that we need a petition at the moment. But if we do get to that point and we start collecting some names and stuff like that, it will all be pushed out through the Facebook and Twitter sites.
No, absolutely. Well, I've just liked it myself on there, Andrew's Law UK, and I'm quite sure that people listening and people who view that page, if ever a time is required where a signature needs to be signed or a letter sent to an MP, I'm quite sure that people will help you and support you, because they are right behind you. And Paul, I really appreciate you taking the time out from your evening and your grief to take the time to talk to us here on Talk Radio, and we send you love and the best of luck.
Thank you very much, Victor.
Thank you, Paul Shrimpton, and we'll stay in touch and we'll keep an eye on how this develops with you. And I know that my audience will be very interested to know how this develops. Paul Shrimpton, PC Andrew Harper's uncle.